morning, Dave. Here we are at Commonwealth Park, yeah?
Good morning, Dale. Yes, Commonwealth Park.
Now, what you're saying something so interesting, which is very common for you because you are a very interesting man. You were talking about when you first came here from New Zealand.
Right, 1969. I arrived in the February of 1969, and by the 1970, I realised that there were things not quite right in Australia. Not realising that the same things were happening in New Zealand, of course. And from that moment on, if I talked to people about it, they didn't seem to understand. And so I would always be told, stop worrying about things. Have another beer, have a pie, everything's just going to be fine. And it just got worse. And of course, by 1973, with Gough turning the Parliament into a corporation, things deteriorated, far more rapidly. I found myself rather out on a limb, having no friends who understood or were interested really in what was actually happening in Australia. And because it was going to be my new home, I was very interested and very upset. So it wasn't until recently, this year actually, Australia Day, and I went to the A1 celebration down in Footscray, and I met for the first time like-minded people, and I got up and I said something at that particular meeting. It wasn't really a rally, it was just a meeting of some A1 people. So yes, I've felt at home ever since.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what do you think is the key message that Australians really need to understand now?
I think they need to understand that they have to wake up, that Australia has been sold out, that their home and their freedoms are eroding rapidly, very rapidly now. And a lot more people, thank goodness, have actually seen what is happening, which is great because you can see all the people here can see that. These people understand the importance, and although my own family don't understand, they're not here, unfortunately. I'm here basically for them, as you can see. My years, a few to keep, but my grandchildren, of course, they have a long way to go. So I would like the freedoms that I had to be theirs as well.
And so, if we don't do something right now, what do you foresee happening in the future? Where do you think we're headed?
Outright communism. Your freedoms will be taken away from you. You'll be completely controlled by the party. And I don't think people really understand that until that's actually happened. A lot of people won't wake up until that's happened.
And what will that look like, do you think, Dave?
A controlled society where you'll own nothing, but you will be happy. Basically, you'll be told what to do, and you'll be treated accordingly. If you go against the narrative, then a lot of your freedoms will be curtailed even further. It may be to the point where it may be difficult for you to even find food. Who knows? I have no idea where it will go, but it's not one that I want to find out. And I know a lot of people have come here from Europe, from communist-controlled countries, and they're here to make sure that we don't follow in the same way. They came here for the freedoms, and we don't want to see that taken away.
Yeah, and what, if you could have one thing changed right this moment, what would it be?
Dissolve a parliament right now, and then have, I do like A1's idea of people having a lot more say in how we're going to be controlled and how much freedom that we should have. I think it goes all the way down to very small councils. I think we could do away with a lot of controls. I think people on a whole understand that you need to behave in a certain manner. I don't think you need to be told all the time.
Yep, and how do you think that that we're going to be controlled if we don't do something about this?
It'll be a police state, straight up.
And have we, a bit of a leading question, but do you think we've seen that anywhere already?
Well, yes, we are being controlled in Canberra, unfortunately, yes. I mean, the police are only acting out according to their instructions, and I understand that. And perhaps some of them are doing it too willingly, but others maybe not so much.
Yeah, and so do you think there's going to be another pandemic?
Oh, for sure. If we don't do something, they'll come up with something, for sure. It won't be far, and we'll be in a far worse state. If the legislation goes through where the United Nations will actually take over, if we go into a pandemic, then our controls will be a lot stricter because the United Nations will send their people in. And of course, there's no liability against them. So yes, people will really feel it this time, for sure.
And what do how can people find out what's going on and what's really going on?
Ask somebody like myself who's awake. Just ask questions. If you're at all, you understand that there's something wrong, and you're not sure what it is, but you can see some things happening that you're not happy with. Ask somebody who can see it, and they can lead you to the answers. Right? The answers are available, but you must question.
So the type of things that are questionable,
Yes.
Would presumably be vaccine mandates.
Yes, and why on earth we have to take 5 shots for a particular virus?
And you have a medical background, so you're
I do.
all over that.
Well, I had to start querying it myself in the end. We took one, the first one, and I had a reaction, a very bad reaction. So I started to look very deeply into what was going on. I took it out of expediency, which was an absolutely stupid thing to do. I was able to travel, which was my major thing. I was able to visit, my grandchildren and what have you. Since I haven't taken the mandatories after that, I can't do that so easily. So.
And what was the adverse reaction that you had? It was very severe, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. So my right eye was very, very blurry. It was like it was jumping, and I couldn't see out of that eye.
Yeah, what would you say? Someone was talking to me the other day about the Facebook, as a medical professional yourself, talking about the Facebook fact checkers. What credibility would you say they have medically?
Okay, that's a loaded question.
I know.
All right, there are some that have all the qualifications necessary, and there are others pertaining to have the qualifications and that they don't. One must do their own research in this matter and check the person's qualifications to see how far their opinions would matter to you. So not every person would agree.
Fact check the fact checkers and see whether they have credibility to you.
Correct.
Excellent. And so what they're fact checking and what their credibility pertaining to that area is.
Right. Yes, correct.
Love it. And so what do you think? It seems like, well, not seems like, I guess, Australia is very divided now.
Yes.
What do you think we could do to unite, and what could we unite around?
Good question. I'll turn into a politician yet. All right. I think to understand another person's point of view is very important. So tolerance is really, really important. And to not, this is getting close, to check that person's stance on life. So for instance, if anti-vax, I shouldn't say that word because we're more anti-mandate than anti-vax. We've all had, I'm sure, some inoculation somewhere along the line. So we can't be anti-vax, otherwise we would be vaccine-free. To understand when a person has decided for their own not to do something, that they shouldn't be ostracised, but understood, as well as for the person who's decided to take it, that is a personal decision, and so they shouldn't be ostracised either. So the two must come together.
Yes,
as one.
I have definitely heard and experienced both sides.
Sure.
I've seen people who have cut off people who are unvaccinated, and I've heard the reverse: unvaccinated people who cut off people who are vaccinated.
That's starting to happen now because there's a thing called shedding, and some people are much more sensitive, especially if you have other allergies, and they actually start to feel ill. Unfortunately, it's a minority, it's not a majority, and so they try to avoid, but they don't ostracise anybody, but they try to avoid. They can feel it. I can't feel that, but so they say that some people can. And again, that's not through intolerance of them, it's intolerance for their health.
And what do you think that? Because it seems to me that the problem is that all these things are in the dark, that they can't be spoken about. Now, if you talk about shedding, okay, well, I mean, the majority of people would probably think that that is conspiracy theory and not true and ridiculous and all sorts of things. But really, it doesn't matter whether it's all those things.
No.
If it's put in the light and questioned and researched, then it will be proven to be one way or the other. Rather, it's all these things in the dark that nothing. I mean, it's things are said to be conspiracy, and 6 months later they're true, or 6 months later they're shown to be, incorrect. If things were actually in the light and debated and researched.
I think if a person feels that that's happening, that person's entitled to it, whether it's true or not. If they feel they are being harmed and they wish to stay away from people like that, that's a personal decision for that person.
But there should be, but beyond that, there
should
be some research.
Yes.
Research. So tolerance of different opinions. Research into. I mean, science. I thought science was where you put a hypothesis and test it, but doesn't seem to be that way anymore. When you were studying, was that how you saw science and medical science, that you had a hypothesis and tested it?
Tested it, exactly. Yes, and your conclusions, it could actually vary per test as well. So, science is perhaps still learning, and we're constantly doing that, aren't we? We're constantly learning. Nothing is set in concrete. So.
Well, that's right. So that science is settled is ridiculous in a way, but a scientific fact, which I wouldn't question, is that you're a man, I'm a woman, and that can't change.
Well, that's true. We are getting into deep waters here.
Because I would say the science is settled on that one.
Yes, well, they have.
Because biology, there's certain biology is the same as gravity, is the same as all sorts of other things that it's so it's just categorically correct.
Yes, you can have hermaphrodites, but rare.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about now is wokeism and a person how they feel rather than what they really are.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it, that science can be settled on something as big as the climate, but it can't be settled on something as small as man and a woman. It's extraordinary where it's settled.
Climate hasn't settled. All right, so there's two theories with science. One is that yes, you know, the Earth is warming up and we're the cause of it. And then there's another science that says, well, you need the CO2, otherwise the trees die. And people have forgotten that the water, the sea, actually takes 90% of the carbon anyway, and we're killing the sea. So, but they're not looking at that. So that's an area that perhaps we could open up another time.
I love it. I love it. Well, it has been such a delight and so exciting. And thank you so much for giving your precious time to
Pleasure.
come here to give a chance for freedom and a chance for sovereignty of Australia.
Oh, thank you for the chance of speaking. It was very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.